I want to run them across a chronograph and actually show you statistically the difference in trajectory and energy. A lot faster than I thought it was going to be. I've been moose hunting for a lot of years. I've killed them with archery equipment and rifle and muzzleloader. And here lately I've been doing a lot of bow hunting for moose. Last year I killed an incredible moose in Vermont, and I'm down to one species left, which is my Shiras moose, and I'm going to try to take that with my Encore muzzleloader. So I thought I'd take you through my muzzleloader build. We're going to go ahead and put the scope on this, but before I do that, I want to tell you the bullets and the powder I'm going to shoot. One of the most common propellants out there in the marketplace, 777, they're pellets, easy to find in most states and most stores, pelletized. These are 50 grains, per tablet, if you will. So there's 2 of these. So if I use 2 or 3 of these, it's 100 or 150 grains of powder and a 250 grain Sabo bullet. So this is the Shockwave bullet in the Mag Express Sabo. This is 250 grains. So this configuration is what probably killed more whitetails than virtually any other setup in the marketplace today. Now, new propellants have been coming out. Blackhorn 209 is one of the most sought after powders today. It's a nitrocellulose based powder, so it doesn't have sulfur in it. This does not have as much smoke. It doesn't corrode in your barrel. You don't have to clean between shots. There's a lot of advantages to this powder, but it has the same pressure curve as other synthetic black powder substitutes like the 777. So ballistically, these are very similar, but this is easier to clean, not as hygroscopic, which means it doesn't absorb as much moisture, and it's very consistent in its velocities. The standard deviation is fantastic. So I'm going to go with the Blackhorn 209. Now you have to measure this with a powder measure because this is loose powder, as you can see here. They look like little straws that are cut up. So a little bit more cumbersome to load, but very consistent. And we're at the range here later today. I'll take you through how I load, how I shoot to make this the most consistent powder out there. But my bullet selection, instead of shooting your Shockwave bullet, I'm going to go to a bore-sized bullet. Now you have 2 choices when you go to a bore-sized bullet. You have the bore driver. This is a standard bore driver. Okay, so here you have a 45 caliber bullet right there. And then here you have a 50 caliber bullet. Now the Sabo makes this 45 caliber bullet 50 caliber in your gun, but you can tell the difference here going to bore size bullet. Now it's heavier. You go from 250 to 290 grains, but it's easier to load. The terminal performance is the same, but the ballistics aren't as good because the size of the bullet is larger, so it's less aerodynamic. You can just look at it and see that. But this leaves a heck of a wound channel. So if I'm shooting, 150 yards and under, right, I'm gonna go probably with the bore driver. If I'm going 150 and beyond, I'm probably gonna go with the Sabo bullet, or I can step it up to the bore driver ELDX. So these 2 bullets are very similar in design. They're both copper jacketed bullets. They both have your plastic tip on them, but you can just tell the ballistic coefficient on the ELDX is tremendously better. Now this is a heavier bullet. This is 340 grains versus 290. So you're going to have more recoil with the ELDX, but when you go 150 yards and beyond, believe it or not, the ELDX is going to fly flatter than the Shockwave bullet, but you are increasing your recoil. 250, 340, 90 grains more. So if you can withstand the additional recoil, you also have more punch on the animal. So I'm hunting a moose. I'm hunting something that's going to be, 800 to 1,000 pounds, depending on the body size of these Shiras. So I want a heavier bullet, but I may have to shoot beyond 150 yards in this big open country in Utah. So I want something ballistically superior. So of the 3 choices, you can't go wrong with any one of them. I've killed big game animals with all 3, but I'm going to go with the Hornady bore driver ELDX. It's heavier and more aerodynamic. So they're my choices for my powder. They're my choices for my bullet. When we go to the range, I'm going to show you how well they perform. But now, let's go ahead and mount the scope up. So this is your Encore muzzleloader. This is the Pro Hunter version. It's the XT version, so I can take out the breech plug by hand. So I can simply turn the breech plug like that. I can pull it out to clean. Maintenance this breech plug is nitride treated, which means there's a treatment that's put over the breech plug so it will not rust, it will not corrode. It's a fantastic innovation Thompson Center's brought to the marketplace. In fact, the extractor, the sear, the trigger, as well as the firing pin bushing are also nitride treated. You can't really see that, but once you start shooting this gun and feel the trigger pull and see how well it does in the elements, there's no doubt that you'll understand how superior this is. I put a Picatinny rail on top. You can use a standard cross slot base. I like all the options here of the cross slots. Scopes have changed a lot, and the length of the tube has changed, so getting the ring placement perfect, this just gives me more options. For my scope, I'm going right to the top of the loopholed food chain. I'm going VX6 HD Gen 2. So they make several versions of the VX line. I'm a big fan of VX5, but this is a very, very critical hunt for me. So the VS6 means you have 6 times zoom ratio. So it goes from 2 power all the way up to 6, or all the way up to 12. So 2 times 6 is 12. So 6 times zoom. But look at how small the scope is for 12 power. So this gives me the ability to turn it down to 2 or 3 power. If I'm in the timber and I have a moose, you think of how big a moose is, and he's coming in and grunting, and we're calling him in tight, I'm going to turn this down to 2 power because I have the biggest field of view possible. But if I'm on the open sage flat, I'm in a big prairie situation, I now can roll this to 12 power and still have great ability to zoom in and place that bullet. And then I also have the illuminated reticle here. Dark animal, dark conditions, could be deep timber, could be getting dusk out, and then I have the ability to press the button and illuminate my reticle. So good, small, compact scope, gives me 12 power magnification, but goes down to 2 power. All right, to mount this, let me walk you through the process. Everybody has their own way of doing this. I'm just going to tell you how I've done this, and I've mounted hundreds and hundreds of scopes. The very first thing we want to do is we want to level the gun. Put this around the barrel. So what we're going to do, this will all make sense to you here in a second. All right, so now at this point, we're going to take the level off of the gun because we need to have the clearance for the scope. So now we'll put the rings on. What most people tell you, push the ring all the way forward and then lock it in. The reason for that is when you shoot the gun wants to recoil, but the scope wants to stay in place. So you don't want to, if the ring is in the back, you have the ability of that to come loose and shift. By pushing it all the way forward, you're right against the front edge of the ring. Lock that down. You need about 45 inch-pounds of torque. Now the second ring, I do something a little bit different. Now what conventional scope mounting people will tell you is, again, push the ring all the way forward like this. I don't. Front ring all the way forward, back ring all the way back. Now we're just going to place the scope right in the rings like this. Pop our ring tops on, and then we're going to set our eye relief. So you want to take this till it's just about snug, and we'll put the other ring on. Same thing here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take the gun out of the vise. We're going to hold it like I'd be hunting, get it corrected, and then push it forward and pull it back. Okay. So I want it at 12 power. I want to see a perfect field of view. I don't want any halo around it. I don't want any dark edges. I'm going to throw it up. That is good. And I don't feel like I'm going to hit myself in the face with the scope. It's easier to crawl forward on the gun a little bit. If the scope is too far back and it cracks you in the face, that's never a good thing. All right, eye relief is set, highest power. Let's go back to this level we talked about. We leveled the gun, so our level is here on the front. So we're going to re-level that. Now we're going to take this level and drop it on there. Now we're going to come in here and we're going to rotate our scope just just a little bit. So that's perfect. All right, here's our torque wrench set at 28 inch-pounds, okay, which is what Loophole calls out for their spec. And you just do a little bit at a time, because what we don't want to do is move the scope. So if you just start tightening one side and you don't alternate a little bit at a time, what you're going to do is you're going to change the orientation of your scope. So those are all snug. Throw that back on, make sure I haven't made a mistake. So that's centered, perfect. All right, now that we have everything kind of snug, I can start going a little bit more, tightening at one time. Now I'll go half turn, half. You can feel it start to grip. I haven't bottomed the screws out yet. You'll hear the torque wrench click over. There you go. So when that breaks, I know I'm at 28 inch-pounds. Click. Here we go. All right, one last confirmation. Perfectly level. Perfect. Look at that. Right on. Could not have been any better. Level, level, done. So now that I'm done, I can take our levels off. Plenty of scope clearance. Now the Encore does have swing hammer here, so I can access the hammer easily because I can pivot it to the right side, the center, or the left side, but I still have plenty of space right there to cock the hammer. I don't have any interference. Everything's locked in. Can throw the lever easy. And then at 12 power, plenty of field of view. All right, it's that simple. Scope is mounted. We've chosen our powder. We've chosen our bullets. Let's head to the range, get it sighted in. So we went through the muzzleloader build earlier. We put the scope on here. We explained the powder and the bullet configurations that I want to use for my moose hunt coming up here in Utah. But instead of just talking about the differences between these three bullets, I want to run them across a chronograph and show you the difference in trajectory and energy between the 250 grain Shockwave, the 290 grain bore driver, and the 340 grain bore driver ELDX. So we're going to take 3 shots, run across the chronograph, and I'm going to write down the velocities, put it into the Hornady Fordolf app, and actually show you statistically the difference in trajectory and energy. So we're going to start with the 250 grain Shockwave. Chronograph lined up here. First shot. .2070, 2,070 feet per second, which is pretty standard. So let's put this in the Hornady Fordolf app. All right, PC calculator. So I've already built the profiles for these. So that's the bore driver 290. So our bullet drop is 10.19. Let me write this down. At 200 yards, so zeroed at 100, I'm dropping 10.19 inches. Shockwave, which is minus 10.19. And then my energy at 200 yards is 1,117. 1,117. So I like to stay over 1,100 foot-pounds of energy for shooting elk, moose, something big game. I like to be over 800 foot-pounds of energy for whitetail, antelope, medium-sized game. So this would be the bare minimum at 200 yards that I'd want to shoot an elk or moose. So 100% I would shoot this bullet at 200 yards on the moose. All right, let's go to our second shot with the standard 290 grain bore driver. Now, one of the advantages of the Blackhorn is you don't have to swab between shots. You do have to with 777 or Pyrodex to maintain consistency and easy loading. So much easier with QLA. Now, one of the advantages that you do have on the bore size bullets, whether it's the bore driver or the ELDX, is they load a little bit easier because they're slightly undersized to the bore. So look at that. Look at how much easier that is to load. You still want to compress that powder. So this skirt or gas check holds the bullet in place upon ignition, and then the bullet is actually a thousandths undersized, so it's 0.499 as in a .50 bore. But when that ignition occurs, it swells the bullet, engages it into the rifling, so you still have a very, very accurate projectile. It just loads a lot easier. So if you have any difficulties loading your muzzleloader, definitely try a bore-sized bullet. (1971), which again, you're shooting a heavier bullet. You go from 250 to 290. That's the only difference in the velocity. You go out here to favorites. So I've already built this inside my app, edit session. And now we go to 1971. Save that. Let me go to my ballistics chart right there. So what I've got for 200 yards, now I'm 13 inches low. So the bore size bullet, and you could see from the shape of the bullet, it's definitely not as aerodynamic as the Shockwave. The Shockwave is a 45 caliber bullet in a sabot, which makes it fit down to 50 caliber bore. So now we're going to velocity here, 1971, and our energy is 964. 964 foot-pounds of energy. All right, so you can tell the difference here just between these two. Slower in velocity, definitely drops more, drops 3 inches more, and less than foot-pounds of energy because you're losing the velocity. That's the big reason. This would be right on the cusp. I would really, a 200-yard shot would be about max, I would probably say 150, 175 for the bore driver. But now let's go shoot a heavier bullet. This is a 340 bore driver ELDX. So dramatically different in the shape of the bullet from the bore driver. So you can tell the difference. Big tip, heavier bullet, better ballistic coefficient. But what does the better ballistic coefficient mean? It should mean it's sleeker in the air, downrange, maintains its velocity, maintains its energy. Let's load it and see. So one unique thing about these pointed bullets, the ELDX, is you need a different loading tip. So this now fits the tip here and pushes off the ogive of the bullet and doesn't push the tip. So loading it with a standard ramrod is not advisable because you can actually damage the tip. So I'm going to screw this onto the ramrod and finish my loading with the loading tip. Compress it onto that powder. All right. Now, because it's a heavier bullet, this should be flying slower. I'm saying we're probably going to be 1850 maybe. But you're going to see that even though it's slower, it's going to maintain that velocity at longer ranges and the energy at longer ranges because of the superior ballistic coefficient. All right. Wow. 1905. A lot faster than I thought it was going to be. That's really not a huge drop. So we were at 1971. Now we're at 1905. Let's plug that in the calculator. That's really not bad. It's only losing 65 feet per second. All right, here we go. 200 yards, 10.63. So negligible. So minus 10.63 to the Shockwave, 3 inches, 2.5 inches better than the standard bore driver. Wow, look at your energy right there. 1642. This is what I wanted to show you guys. 1642. So bore driver ELDX we just shot 1905 compared to 1971 2070. Lighter bullet, medium weight bullet, heavy bullet. But because of the BC, your 200-yard drop, 10.63 versus 10.19, negligible between the shockwave and the bore driver. Definitely better than the standard bore driver. But again, that's 200 yards. Most people aren't shooting 200 yards. If you're shooting under 150, don't worry about it. But look at the difference of the energy. You wondered why I'm using this bullet from Moose. On the low end, 964 foot-pounds of energy with standard bore driver. Marginal at 200 yards. Feel a lot better shooting a shockwave. But 1,642 foot-pounds of energy. Wow. I mean, that is 60% better in energy. So I don't give up anything in trajectory. I add recoil. It's heavier, right? It's 90 grains heavier than the shockwave, but I'll take the recoil in exchange for another 600 foot-pounds of energy. So now that we know and qualified which bullet we're going to shoot, now we're going to dial this in, make a couple adjustments, and show you how well this gun can group with the Hornady bore driver ELDX. All right, so now this is about my hunt. This is getting things super dialed. Once I get this gun sighted in, I'll come back to this range here and I'll shoot for the next 2 weeks, getting comfortable with the gun, shooting in different environmental conditions, making sure everything stays where it's at. And obviously I'm gonna reach out to Leupold and have a custom turret made for longer ranges. All right, so let's see where I hit. Look at the spotting scope here. All right, not bad. I was about 2 inches low. Left and right look really good. Maybe a ½ inch to the left. All right, let's get this gun sighted in for a moose hunt. All right, 1 inch low, ½ inch left. Probably, that's maybe close to 1.5 inches. Just a touch to the right, about the same height. We'll just see if the gun stabilizes right there. We're not going to make any other changes. She's grouping really well. Those 2 shots are touching, so we're probably sub-inch at 100 yards. All right, just a touch lower. So we need to go up. Again, because I'm going to have a custom turret made, I need to make sure that at 100 yards, this is absolutely perfect. When you get to shot 8, 9, or 10, somewhere in there, you need to thoroughly clean your gun, especially your breech plug. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting close. I should have the gun sighted in by then. All right, here we go. This should cut the red bullseye. One o'clock on the red. We're going to shoot one more shot, make sure I stay in the red, and then I'd say this gun is ready for our moose hunt. All right, confirmation shot. This should cut the red bullseye, and then we'll go down and look at it. Ooh, I'm gonna stop right there. Good, excellent. That gun is dialed. We'll walk down there. Let's look at the group. The first group was low, made the adjustments, brought it up, brought it to the left, just a touch, but fantastic group with the ELDX, the Encore, and the Leupold scope. Let's check it out. All right, put this back together here. So, wow, we just, look at that. I just want to get credit for that, that last shot. There we go. We got it back together. All right, so here were our first 3 shots. Shot here, made an adjustment. You know, it all hung right here. Then I'm like, okay, I need to go up and I need to go to the left. There I shot at 1 o'clock. I didn't touch anything, because sometimes you're just wiggling a little bit. Sometimes you just got to see where the group finishes. But there's my last shot. Absolutely dead center in the bullseye. And then if you look at that group size from there, you know, from here to here is 1 inch. So I mean, you're talking a 3/4 inch group at 100 yards. 120 grains of blackcorn powder, Encore muzzleloader, Loophole VX5 HT Gen 2 with the Hornady bore driver ELDX. We showed you how superior this is in trajectory, in energy transfer at longer ranges. So for moose hunting, this is absolutely perfect. If you're shooting sub-inch and 100 yards, that's amazing. So I'm going to record all this data, send it to Loophole. They're going to cut me a special turret that I'm going to put on the top of my VX5 HD Gen 2. And then I can go back and qualify that at 150 and 200 yards. I'm probably not going to shoot beyond 200 yards. I can. I've got a ton of energy over 1,600 feet per second. But I think with a moose, big body like that, I can stalk in a little bit closer. So a little bit more shooting, longer range. I'll be ready to head out to Utah.